Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. For my drawing today, I will be using a fountain pen that I did have for a while in my collection, but never really used it. And that's because I had two other versions of this fountain pen that I use more often, and this one I hold it in my collection without using it up until today. The other two fountain pens that I have in the style of this one, there are two titanium fountain pens that I reviewed, I think about a year ago or something like that. And I went in a lot of depth regarding the fountain pen. The style is very similar, pretty much exactly the same design with exactly the same section and nib size and pretty much everything. The only major difference between this fountain pen and the other two is that this one seems to be made out of zirconium rather than titanium. I've never had zirconium in my hand up until I had this fountain pen. I was really curious how good it's gonna feel in my hand. And I have to be honest, I am a little bit impressed about it. I think zirconium, in essence, it's a little bit heavier than titanium. I don't know of any specific way in how I could test and make sure that this is zirconium, but considering that the other two were titanium, as were described, I will tend and trust that the metal for this fountain pen is actual zirconium. One thing that I did change on the fountain pen was the nib. The nib it came with was a generic Moonman No. 5 nib, and it was gold. Something that I didn't really like on this fountain pen, and I wanted the all blackout look, so I replaced it with a D-like nib with the hope that the fountain pen will still be just as good with this nib, considering that I've never really been disappointed with the D-like nibs so far. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a little bit of a challenge for my drawing for this specific paper and how it was behaving, and it did frustrated me a little bit, but not too much. For the ink, I will be using the Platinum Carbon black ink, only because I wanted to use black on black, and I thought that the carbon black will be a perfect match for it, considering that this fountain pen is not perfectly black, it's more of a grayish or dark gray. Usually zirconium comes in this kind of a color. That's why I would tend to say that most probably this is zirconium. Writing sample, not a problem. A little bit of a skips when I was going fast enough, but I blame that on the actual ink, since this ink tends to be a little bit more drier than regular normal ink, since it is carbon based. There is a little bit of a flex in the nib, not much, just enough to give your writing a little bit of character. Again, though, keep in mind that this is not the actual nib that comes on the fountain pen if you decide to purchase one for yourself. So no real issues during the writing sample. Everything seems to work just fine, at least for writing. Just like the other titanium versions of this fountain pen doesn't really post, but at the same time you probably do not want to post it because the cap is pretty heavy. The whole pen in itself is pretty heavy, so if you don't like heavy pens, most probably this will be a hard pass for you. The other thing that you might not be comfortable with, and unfortunately this will be more of a test and see if you like it or not, is that section. Since that section is not smooth and it does have ridges to it, most probably if your hand tends to be a little bit more grippy on your writing instrument, that section will probably be uncomfortable after a while. For the drawing purposes, the way I use my fountain pen, and considering that I keep my grip a little bit higher, pretty much on the barrel with this fountain pen, I didn't really had any issues during the drawing session, and actually it was very comfortable the way I was holding it. Speaking of the drawing, I didn't really had any ideas on what I wanted to draw today, so like usual, just started smudging things on the paper, looking for some shapes, and then kind of a building from there. As usual, I sort of came up with an outline of something, and then I started to fill in those outlines with different kind of shape, and letting the pen glide on the page, and whenever it created like a darker spot, I use that as the excuse to either add a fold or a bend or something that will look a little bit more organic. So in order to achieve that, I kind of let the fountain pen decide when to add things, and only took control of the shape in specific areas that I liked and I wanted them to be in a specific shape and form. One thing that I really liked about the fountain pen and the nib setup and the ink is that the whole thing felt a lot like a pencil. I know I keep saying this, but this one really felt like a pencil. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but the wispy lines, they were barely visible. It felt like I was using a 0.5 pencil lead HB, pencil. Or better said, mechanical pencil. And I was building the shading very slowly and coloring the inside of the shapes. Everything worked out pretty well, or better said, as well as I wanted it to be, until I got to draw the second eye of the being that I was working on. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, at that point in time, the nib started to dump more ink on the page than the rest of the drawing that I've done up until that point. So I was faced with a little bit of a challenge because I wasn't able to mimic the same lines and folds and shapes that I had on the left side of the drawing. It was a really weird thing. I don't know why that happened. One of the reasons why the eye, or better said, the left eye of this being turned out to be a little bit darker than the right eye, at least darker than I was intending it to make it originally. I think in the whole thing kind of lines up okay, because I guess it's left side, right side for us, in theory will be more in the shade, and that maybe is okay, I guess, maybe, but still it was a little bit of frustration with it. However, I was able to use the reverse on its left side to get a similar-ish line and look as its right side. It was a little bit annoying, no denying in there, but eventually I made it work. And as an odd fact, towards the end, the fountain pen started to work the same as it was working at the beginning, which was really weird. I don't know what to blame it on. The nib that I choose to put on the fountain pen, the ink that was behaving very odd, or the paper. I don't know why the paper though, because the paper was the same throughout the whole drawing, and nothing really changed in there. But anyway, that was my challenge for today, trying to get consistent lines. And I can't really blame that on the fountain pen because I choose to put this nib on it. I assume that maybe the nib was the issue, or maybe some ink flow, maybe some paper got between the tines, since the paper is a little bit flaky And especially if you spend too much time in one spot, you can easily start basically digging into the paper and ripping off fibers out of it. So maybe it was the paper as well. And it not liking the nib, since this one was pretty much an extra fine nib. What the frustrating side aside, the drawing for today turned out actually very interesting, again, from my opinion. I don't know what it is. Now that I'm looking at it after the fact, it kind of looks like some sort of a maybe sea creature. Almost like I see some octopus qualities to it. I don't know if anybody sees that, or at least sees what I see. However, because of the frustrations that I had, I think I did screw up a little bit of the shading on it. For example, on the bottom side, its left side, those things coming out of it, tentacles or flesh bits or whatever you want to call them, I think they should have been a little bit darker, since that entire side of it is a little bit darker. I guess I could work out on it afterwards. Unfortunately, I had to cut it short, and by short I mean it was 4 o'clock in the morning and I had to stop. Probably I should have broken down this entire thing into 2 sessions rather than 1. This drawing, believe it or not, it took me actually 4 hours and a little bit to finish. I did not expect that. I got lost into the details and the folds that it has. I really enjoyed doing this, and I really enjoy how this paper makes it so easy to create these shapes. Yeah, interesting drawing. I don't know what it is. Let me know what you see. Like I said, to me it looks like a maybe deep sea creature, especially with those big eyes. And kind of looks like an octopus-ish, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, fun drawing. Fun fountain pen. I enjoyed it. I'm happy it's part of my collection. If I will find any other zirconium fountain pens that are made from, well, zirconium, I will definitely try and get some in the future, well, as long as they don't tend to be super expensive. Speaking of, I believe this one, from all the fountain pens that I have seen so far, is the cheapest zirconium fountain pen I have seen. Oh, one bit that I forgot to mention, maybe the clip on this fountain pen is just as useless as the other clips on the other titanium versions, and it is made of titanium, not zirconium, including the bolt that secures it to the cap. Enough with my ramblings. Fun fountain pen, fun drawing. Can't wait to do the next one, and I think next one I will try and force myself to break it down into 2 days. This way I will make sure I can finish it properly as I intended to. With that said, thanks a lot for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you next time. And I wish you a wonderful day or night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.